on the management of the family unit, the couple, and then the two individuals, so that you don't lose sight of yourself. Because I think that's probably the thing that I admire the most. I feel like it's that the way our culture is structured, it's easier for men to keep track of themselves, but for women to give themselves up. And I feel like you've done a really good job, Delilah, of not letting yourself go. And I don't mean physically or anything like that, but I mean not letting yourself go in terms of like your emotional well-being.
I appreciate that. Yes. Just like Cory, my me time is just important. That it comes first, because I would not be able to do all the things that I do if I wasn't taking care of myself. And the morning time is always the best time when it comes to exercise, whether it's just going for a walk for 30 minutes with Cory. That's what I'll do. That's my physical time for me. I'm big on waking up and reading a quote. It's right there on my side of my bed. I have a desk calendar, and I'm all about personal growth. So I think about whatever the message is for the day and maybe implement it accordingly, or just reflect on, do I do that, or is that me, or do I want to be that person? So reading is obviously important to me. On my drive time to work, I listen to podcasts. That's
Whose
important.
podcast do you listen to?
Do you listen to
Well, on Mondays, I listen to Money Talk LA, and on Wednesdays, Wealth Habits, of course. But I listen to Jay Shetty when it comes to, health, mental health.
Yes.
Gary V for marketing and business. Dr. Joe Dispenza when it comes to the brain.
Yes.
Jim Quick on the brain.
Yes.
Mel Robbins when you just
Need to
need
get
to
that.
hear it.
Rule,
Yes,
yep.
yes, absolutely.
Yep.
So that is just, it's a gem. It's knowing that I'm putting myself first to be able to provide to my family when it comes to emotional, physical.
What would you say to someone, because I would imagine there's probably couples in varying degrees of health, if you will, that are listening to this podcast. What would you say to that woman, or maybe that man, but that woman in the relationship that probably hasn't made that a priority, but they're like, say, 15 years into the game now? Can you come back from having 15 years of not having put yourself first? And how do you begin to
Sure you can.
create space? And I guess, Cory, from your perspective, I would want to know, because if you've done something for a while, people get used to the way that you're doing something. Now you want to switch it up. What considerations would a woman need to think about for her man, knowing that she's got to make herself a priority, and that he might, he's been used to her not being the priority.
Right.
So
I think we always talk about is communication. That has got to be the paramount amount of your relationship, because if someone is saying that this is the way things have been all our lives, and all of a sudden you change it right out of the blue, there should be at least a conversation of why you're changing it. And I think, again, going back to the 5 love language, he talks about in the form of communication, you're expressing your conversation in a way that is loving because you want him to hear you, right? As opposed to, depending on how you present the conversation, it may come off as combative, or like you're pushing on him or pushing back on him, or in that conversation. So I think it's always about the tonality and the things that you say and how you say it. For me, I love Lila to death, and for me, if I see her in any kind of pain, it hurts me, physically hurts me. And so I think anyone who's in a relationship, you should have that feeling about that with
type
your
of
spouse.
empathy, yeah.
An empathy. And if she is feeling a certain way and she needs your help to be able to move into the directions that's going to be healthy for her, as the person who's supposed to be her best soulmate, her cheerleader, her best friend, I'm supposed to be able to support that, and I think that's a big part of it. And I think as a man, right, that is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to protect your wife. I don't mean it in an old sense of women can't protect themselves.
Me Tarzan,
right?
you
Yeah,
Jane.
yeah. But I'm saying in the
Right.
sense of I want to make sure she never hurts. If I can help.
Right. And I believe that your spouse, your loved one, should pay attention. You have to pay
That
attention.
right there, that part.
Because you go through your daily routine, right? And everything's the same every day. And if you feel a sense of suffering or you see it, you need to stop and ask, is there something that you need to do? Do you need time to yourself?
That's
Cory
good, Delilah.
Cory
That's good. I hope y'all are listening. No, get that right there. Pay attention.
Because Cory has asked me throughout the years on not many occasions, very, very few, do you want to like just go to a hotel and just go get a massage, you know, and that in itself lets you know that the person is aware.
I love that. Here's a question. Is there anything that, this is for Delilah and then for Cory or vice versa, is there anything that you, on your own, realized that you had to give up or stop doing in order to make your marriage work?
Go ahead, Lai.
After that laugh, no,
What?
you go.
Yeah, you go.
Well, you know what? Look, okay, I don't think. Yeah, right. All right. You know what? For me, and I think the one thing I had to give up is I had to stop trying to fit Delilah into what I wanted her to be. Right. I think that was a big thing for me, and like the growth of our relationship. Like I had a certain image of how I wanted our power couple relationship to be. And I needed her to be X, Y, and Z and do certain things. And I kept manifesting that conversation in my head of how I looked at it. And it wasn't until I realized that I have to love her for who she is and accept all the wins that she has, because that's what's going to help us grow our relationship. So for me, and I laugh about that because at the end of the day, that was something that I internally was dealing with at some point in time in my relationship or in our relationship. And I was thinking to myself, when you said that, like it brought that back
powerful,
up, right?
Cory.
And I was like, okay, you need to chill.
No,
You know?
I think that's powerful because I think everyone, not even just relationships, but you have to die to your expectations and embrace what is. That's fire.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. I got goosebumps from that one. Go ahead.
You know, honestly, I really don't believe that I've had to give up anything to make our marriage work. We talk things through, and
We talk a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, I may have to come back later on, but at this point, I really can't think of anything that I've had to give up.
Okay. What about conflict? Like, how have you handled, or has there been something? Like, have you had a season where it was just arguments? It's like, why are we arguing? But then there's another argument. Has there ever been a season like that? And then how did you make it through?
It was around 2008, 2009. We lost everything. And, you know, they say that finances make or break your marriage, or can make or break your marriage.
It was close.
And it wasn't because we didn't, or that we had lost everything financially. It was just the stress of now what. So that was really what made those arguments come to life.
Yeah, I think for me personally, as the man and the provider, when we started losing our business and our homes and the cars and everything, like from a place where you just become broken, you know, because you're not doing what you said you would do. You vowed to love, honor, and cherish, you know, and be able to take care of that person. And for me, I think in 2008, that was the spot that I think I was at one of my lowest points because I didn't know how to get up, you know, and I think because of all the inside talk that you were having with yourself and all the negativity you were throwing to yourself, you know, and saying that, how did I make this mistake? And then not realizing that it wasn't me, it was what the economy was doing at that time. And we were just in a position or in a business that really drastically got affected by it, you know?
And I think he was being incredibly hard on himself. He was blaming himself because he had worked so hard to reach the level of success that we were at, and then to have to come home and tell me we gotta take everything.
That was.
We have to take everything.
And
And
you gotta be crying
and-
over here.
right. And then
But real talk,
Yeah.
somebody's going through that right now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, what could you say to them to help them hang on? Where they're at that place where they could chuck it or stay. Like,
well, interestingly enough, we found out that we were pregnant with Kahea in 2008.
Which
And-
exacerbated all my
Yes.
stress. Okay, even more so
Yes.
at that point.
And initially, yes, he was happy, but I don't think he could be genuinely happy at that time because all he can think of is how am I going to provide for another
baby.
family member?
Yeah.
And that's all he was thinking. And so, of course,
I feel that.
Yeah.
but that was the blessing later on because when she was born,
I was fired.
we didn't think about anything else. It was the joy of life and adding more love to what we already had. And that ended up being
That was a catalyst.
answer.
You know,
It
it
was a
was.
catalyst.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a catalyst to spark that
so
fire.
How
again.
do you use it as a catalyst, but then somebody else uses it as a thing to help continue the unraveling? Do you know what I'm like?
Yeah,
What was
definitely.
the maybe what I'm asking is like, what was the internal decision where you used it as fuel and somebody else used it as gas?
let me
Okay.
add to that. No one could take away the knowledge that Cory had. He built it. He could build it again.
Come on.
And
Okay.
that
Now we preaching. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
and
ahead.
That's my baby, man. I want to die over there.
and that is when the reality set in.
Yes.
That what is the serenity prayer?
It was help me to change the things that I can and accept the things that I cannot, and the wisdom
To know the difference.
to know the difference.
Yes.
Yes.
So when that moment happened, Cory realized I'm not going to be in this pity party.
Yeah.
I must move on.
And I think for me at that point, you know, it's to answer your question earlier about someone who's listening to this and they're going through those trials and tribulations and trying to figure out how to step back into it. You know, Simon Sinek always talks about your why. And at that time, I don't know that I understood what your why was, but some people strive for things that they want in the future, while others may have things that they've gone through that are negative that you don't ever want to repeat, right? And for me, it was the latter. I don't ever want to repeat going back to where I was at that point. And knowing that I had this new bundle of joy who was coming into this world, my girl was behind me 100%. I was like, all right, time to dust this
But
mess
I think
off,
that made
you
a
know?
difference.
Yeah.
Her being behind you 100%.
Oh, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
100%. Because
A support system,
Oh
if you
my
don't
God.
have a spouse or, girlfriend, family, friends, someone who's there for you, or even,
through thick and
a
thin.
pastor,
That's
someone
a big
that
one,
can be
you know?
there.
So so Delilah, what would you say to a woman who's struggling to be behind her man 100%? And I know it's not behind, like physically
Right.
behind, but I mean that
support. They're there.
that support,
Yeah,
Right.
that unquestioning belief.
Right. Well, I think it also depends on their love language as well.
Okay.
Because, for example, Cory, his is affirmations, right? And if your loved one enjoys or appreciates when you're saying, I appreciate you, I appreciate the hard work that you put yourself through, I appreciate the lifestyle that you give us, I appreciate
Yes.
when
yes,
you
yes.
share words like that, then you're speaking to their soul.
Yeah, and it gives them energy.
You're
Like it builds them
you're
up.
feeding
You know,
them.
it gives
You're
them
feeding
that it's
them.
okay. You know.
Yes, yes,
I think
yes,
you
yes,
know.
yes,
I want to
yes.
add kind of to that because I think too many times, when we get into marriages, it's easy to say this is not working and get out.
Yeah.
Right. I think society right now has been really driven by that process. Right. We quit things. We like things instantly. Right.
Right. If it ain't working today,
Yeah, I'll find something else to make it work
you
better.
got
right?
24
Yeah,
hours.
without.
okay.
But I think that because of the love language and because Lila, I think, truly knows me, the little things that she says is that little fire that keeps pushing me forward, right? And it doesn't have to be big, but it's just enough to be able to say, like she said the other day, I appreciate the life that you've given us. And it wasn't a lot, but it meant a lot to me, you know, and it made me feel like she's in my corner no matter what. You know, I can show Lila my most vulnerable spot with no judgment.
Yeah.
Like if I want to crawl on her chest and cry, she ain't going, oh, my man is weak. I got to deal with this, you know. And I know guys that go through that with their spouses and get demasculated. Is that what it's called? Emasculated.
Yeah.
You know,
but can't show weakness.
Yeah, and can't show weakness because their spouse is just pouncing on them, like it makes it worse, right?
I want to stay right here for a second because I think everybody goes through moments of weakness, right?
You're human.
And I guess the question is, and maybe this is a Delilah question, this should be me and you, is...
She asking for herself, you know this, right? Listen, she got her notes over there. I'm looking at her right now.
I do have my notes here. But for that woman that might be struggling with a man who may be in an emotionally weak place, because I grew up in the South, so I definitely grew up with that mind. Even though I wasn't raised in that kind of household, I was definitely raised in that mindset of, strong man, and the woman is there, but you're riding on that strength. And so it's uncomfortable to see a man feel weak and to then maintain that level of respect. Talk to me about that. I don't even know what the question is, but you did.
Well, what I appreciate is his vulnerability. Men need to realize that, like Cory said, we're all human. And it's okay. Would you rather pin up and be this ready to erupt volcano and possibly have a heart attack or a stroke because of your pride and your ego, thinking that I can't show my emotion? I think showing your emotion is more strength than having this persona that I'm strong and I'm not going to show emotion because that's a sign of weakness. And again, that's the way we're taught, right? But we've evolved. Personal development, mental health, all of that. Emotions are involved.
Yeah.
So, for a woman, I would hope or trust that they can have that conversation with their spouse and say, it's okay. It's okay for you to share with me, and what can I do to help you feel better? Or do you just need me to listen?
Yeah.
And not make any judgment or only ask me if you want my opinion on something.
Yes.
I think also, though, the spouse or the wife has got to be open enough to know how to bring the best out of their man. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, I've known a lot of friends who don't have that support. Like, I feel truly blessed having Lila because we have a good chemistry. We talked about it earlier about, this is our past lives. We've been together for many other lives.
Get to my question.
Okay. But I really feel that way because, like, in our conversation and things that we talk about, like, it's just I feel comfortable with her, and I don't feel like there's a judgment or I'm going to feel a certain way with her. And quite honestly, I tell her all the time, she's the only one that can hurt me. Like, literally, I feel that way. I don't think there's anyone else could break me the way that she could, and knock on wood, that never happens. But I
think that's the power in it, is that I think that's what makes the trust work, is that you could and you never would.
Right.
So then that brings me to a question of, I know sometimes people do things in relationships. It doesn't have to be like cheating, but it could be things that break trust. Have you guys ever had an experience where you feel like trust was broken or messed with? I don't want to say broken, but, where you've had to forgive one another?
I haven't. Off the top of my head, I can't.
What would you say to someone who is struggling with trust issues in a relationship? And I'm trying to formulate the question as we go because I didn't have this one written down. But the vulnerability, Cory, that you're able to show as a man, was that something that you walked in the door with, or did you have to do you know what I'm saying? You have to build to a place. And how were you able to really go there, to really surrender Because
sure.
it really is a surrender.
No, it is.
You know, we always talk about the woman surrendering, but I think it's the man surrendering as
sure.
well.
For sure. No, not at all. I think, honestly, the one thing that I love about Lila is that she's into personal development as much as I am. And I think that helps our relationship grow. If you looked at our bedroom and our office, there's so many books in that place. You would think you were in a library, right? And it's because, hey, babe, I read so-and-so. You should read this. Hey, babe, I read so-and-so. Or I just listened to this article or this podcast. And I think that helps you grow, And I think for me, who I am today is so different than I was even 5 years ago because of the relationship I have with her. And, she helps me balance, right? I'm a strong personality, and I know that, But Lila will make me go, okay, I need to check that. Okay, I gotta look now. I'll give you an example.
I'm gonna let y'all know a little secret. So Cory and I have a great chemistry as friends, but whenever I hit a roadblock, I always go, "Where's Delilah?" Because I need some help on this one. Okay.
I just want to say this one story because I remember, Lila. So first of all, I grew up, it was not dismal, but we had a pretty decent life, rough life, and I left home really early. So it was always hustling for me, right? And, I would do things that maybe weren't so questionable when I was younger, but when I started to be with Delilah, it's hard not to have certain things rub off on you because you've been with people for so long, right? So this had to be, 5-10 years ago or something like that. But I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember walking out of the grocery store. And you know how when you're in the grocery store, you're just putting things in your basket and stuff like that. And you put the water on the very bottom or the soda on the very bottom. It's heavy and stuff, right? And I remember walking out the basket, and going out. And it wasn't intentional, but we walked out. They didn't catch it. I didn't think about it. They didn't charge for it. And normally, back in the day, I'd be like, hey, that's their fault, right? I got out. It's all good. It's fine, right? Man, I went back. Right, that's their fault that they didn't get that, right? I walked back in. I forgot to pay for this, And I thought to myself, freaking Delilah, man, because I'm like, that is so her, right? And she's rubbed off on me, but it's made me a better person, And truly, that's what I think I've gotten from it and how I've been able to, I guess, become more vulnerable is because she's allowed me to do that and has taught me that it's okay to be that way. Yeah. 'Cause I didn't have that growing up. I didn't think about that growing up, know? It just wasn't around, but she's taught me how to be more in tune to myself, as she says, right?
Now, allowing space for that, because sometimes emotions are hard to deal with. I know just from my own experience, just with friendships, that I don't know if I'm the greatest friend when someone is in their hurting place, and not because I don't want to be, but because that's a lot of emotion to and I know just in my family, emotions were things that you just kind of sweep up under the rug.
Right.
Is that something that you saw as a model, or is that something that you worked on intentionally to allow space for feeling and vulnerability?
When I was in college, that was when I was first exposed to self-help, because I was in a place in my life where things weren't what I thought they should be for me personally. And I think for me, when I started to read books about how important my feelings are and how they should be shared, that I just eventually evolved. There was really no model that I saw that set the example of being able to share emotions, especially with my dad, because he didn't like when I wanted to share my feelings. So much, in fact, that I thought, okay, he doesn't want to hear me verbally, so why don't I write my feelings on paper? That was the worst thing that I could have done, because he was literally saying, we don't talk about it, we're not going to talk about it. And so for me, it was just on my own to do that.
To do that work. That's powerful. Girl.
And when I eventually ended up with Cory, I was still suffering from emotional, disturbing self-esteem and stress.
Much, in fact, she was having bad nightmares and dreams when we first got together. It was a rough time. She had some really bad relationships. And
it was just myself.
So,
and can I just say one thing? In fairness, those of you who are listening, Delilah's dad was amazing. I know it sounds like a lot of bad things he went and did and so forth, but as he got older and as the relationship got older and we were more mature, he was an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Our friendship was amazing, his and I. Literally, he was like my own dad. And I didn't have a dad growing up, and I could honestly say that Joe was like that. So I just want people to understand that there's more sides to him and what he came out to be.
Absolutely. I don't want to take away from the man that everyone loved.
Yeah,
I
without
mean,
a doubt.
I mean,
his
much
funeral
in
was like, you would think you were burying some type of dignitary or president, because I mean, it was from miles around. People came out. That place was packed. There was standing room outside the church. That's how loved he was. So
and I have to say that there are a lot of things about my dad that I'm noticing that I am, and that I love and appreciate. And,
stubborn. That's
Yeah.
Dad and her got that down to a science.
So,
I thought I'd throw that out there. That's that one trait.
I love it. So here's a question that I want to ask. Before we were talking about past lives, and we were having this conversation off camera about reincarnation. Is it real? Is it not? And you shared with me that your mother-in-law feels like you guys have been together before.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And how do you feel about that?
My mom.
I believe there's some truth to that. That's my personal belief. And I say that because we really are in sync with each other. And in past lives, the lessons we learned at that time perhaps transferred into now this existing life, where we've learned a lot of the hard lessons, and that's why it's so easy. I should say it's not an effort that I have to make to love on him or love him or vice versa. So I don't know. And touch on that.
No, just like I agree. I think there becomes a comfortableness that you have with somebody, right? And I think it only happens when you've gone through so many different things that it's just easy, you know? And I think that can only come from someone that you've known. And I think when my mom talks about our past lives, I can see how that could be, because I feel that way with Lila. I feel like at the end of the day, it's easy with her. You know, there's not a lot of, and don't get me wrong, there's work in any relationship, but we don't have the typical fights that most people have. We don't do have the issues that most people have. It's easy. I'm like, there's certain things we're like, that's not worth it. Let's not even talk about that. Don't even worry about it. So I think being in our past lives has probably made us so kind of where we're at, and we're just in a good space right now. Yeah.
But in terms of keeping the passion alive, because I see we got the passion test.
Most definitely.
I'll be adding this to my reading list.
Right.
Okay. But in terms of keeping the passion alive, how do you keep the passion alive? And I wouldn't think passion is just, well, no, I'll let you define it.
It's what?
Y'all teach me. I'm willing to learn over here. Okay.
For me, I think passion is intimacy, and I think it's the little things of walking in the morning together and it's just her and I talking. Like that is like a perfect day to me. We get up and the house is still asleep and it's 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're like, hey, let's go walk, and we'll get up and we go on a walk. And the time that we're walking, we're just having quality time. It's one of the love languages, and it's like no TV on, no work, no that. And we're just talking about everything under the sun. So that's passionate to me. That's intimacy. That's giving us our time to get to connect, So I think that's a big part of it,
I think also on top of that, it's the topics that we talk about. Like, we can literally see the aura of how whatever you listened to or whatever you read has completely resonated with you, and you want to jump on it and continue or be better and do that. And so that in itself, that excites us. It's
Yeah.
seeing the other person excited about something that they learned that was new or never thought about.
Like she's been really big into Gary Vee right now with all of his marketing ideas and strategies. We're launching the podcast, and Lila's about to launch her stuff, and we're really pumped up about it. So when she starts talking about it, she's so excited. And I'm like, well, let me go read some more about Gary Vee so I can get the same kind of excitement, And then we have this great chemistry to be able to talk about it, right? Because now it's something we can kind of implement together, And I think that's the fun part. I think when you're in a relationship, when you can learn to be passionate about other people's things that they're excited about in your relationship, like that makes it funner, right? That makes it more exciting because now you're both talking about things that you're both interested in,
I want to shift gears just a little bit. Have you ever struggled with, maybe more you, Delilah, than Cory, possibly, Cory having friends of opposite sex or Cory vice versa? Like, what's that dynamic been like?
Well, I'll tell you this. His best friend, Davika, she's attractive. She works out. She's smart, intelligent. I love her to death because of the chemistry that they have. And I am so secure in myself that it doesn't even faze me.
But has it ever? Like in the 20 plus years?
When I was pregnant with Chance, there was someone that he had private lessons with in martial arts, and she too was attractive. And maybe because of my hormones, that's when I felt sensitive to, oh my God, I'm not cute anymore. But I knew it was my hormones because initially, right after, it was like she and I, we got along. Right. So Cory has had a lot of female friends. And again, I just go back to just my security. Mm-hmm. I feel confident.
But what enables you? Because I would imagine that there are plenty of women who they may put on a good face, but underneath the surface, it's like, I'll cut her.
Honestly, I don't know. There was even a time where...
or is there anything that he does that helps you? Do you know what I'm saying? Be secure, like feel secure in that.
The way he loves me. Just the time that we spend with each other. Like I know he would never do anything to jeopardize our relationship because I believe that if he hurt me, it would hurt him more to have hurt me. Mm-hmm. And he would not want that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. As I listen to the story and the conversation, for me, I also believe that it's, so in this case with like Davika, like she's a really great friend of mine, right? But I never try to make Lila feel like that she's not welcome with us. Like, because you accept both of us. It's like anybody who knows that if you tell me something, you telling Delilah. Okay? I don't have any secrets from it. I don't want to say, oh, well, let's just you and me hang out and Delilah can't come. No. If Lila wants to come, she coming, And so I think for me, I just always try to make her feel like she's inclusive, right? And because I think that everyone who knows me and everyone who knows my relationship knows that she comes first, over everything else. And I think and as long as I can make her see that and feel that, then I think there's no reason for her to ever feel that jealousy side or whatever else.
And he'll even tell me on occasion when a woman flirts with him or says something. I mean, even to the point, there was this one, my photo was on his desk when he was working at the bank. And the lady says, oh, is that your wife? He says, yes. He says, I'm happily married. She goes, but are you bored?
Oh, okay.
I'm like, well, all right then.
And so he shared that with me, and
and she does the same thing. Like when guys are going to the store, and these young kids be trying to pick up on my wife, and she always says, they'll say, "What's your name?" And she goes, "Mrs. Chapman," and then show her ring like that, right? And so but I think it's cool that we have this kind of conversation because. Like we're in that space that we're comfortable with each other.
We're not threat.
Yeah, to me, I think at the end of the day, it's this: the ring doesn't really mean anything. I think at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it's the individual, if he chooses to accept and respect the relationship the way it's supposed to be,
You need to say that
then
for
that
the-
is what it's going to be.
For the folks in
Period.
the back.
You know?
Repeat that.
No, I mean, that's real.
No,
you know?
seriously.
No, that's real because
it's not like you wouldn't get tempted or.
Right. But you can choose to take the act or not take the act. That's the bottom line.
You are
There-
100%
you're
responsible for that
that
Fellas,
choice
action.
that you
Are you
made.
There it
listening?
is. That's what you have to choose to do.